Good evening, friend. I see you've wandered into another tavern, and I can't help but wonder, what do you hope to hear from the bards this evening?
Moriden, Athluan.
Tonight, dear listeners, I tell you the tale of Moriden Stormcrown, the Dragonborn of the Fourth Era.
Using his mastery of magic, Moriden faced down the Mad Mage Ancano and prevented him from tapping power that would have ended the world.
Bah, master of magic indeed.
Through his cleverness, his strength of arms, and the power of his voice, he had captured the mighty Odahviing and forced it to reveal the location of dreaded Alduin.
Stepping through the veil, he entered the hallowed halls of Sovngarde itself and battled the World Eater, destroying the beast and saving all of Nirn for a second time.
Not that anyone noticed at the time. I sometimes wonder why I bothered.
Now, top off your ales and listen as I tell of his time among the mighty companions of Skyrim and his rise to power as their Harbinger.
You have got to be kidding me. There is almost no chance that they know what happened among the companions, let alone all the time I spent gathering political power to myself. No, they have it all wrong. You, though, you seem almost desperate to hear the story. What is it you are looking for, I wonder? Well, since you want the story so bad and we seem to have time, why not order us a couple of drinks and I'll tell you the truth of that time. The truth, mind you. Not that drivel that bard up there is embarrassing themselves with. Because the truth... the truth is not what the bards would have you believe. "16 Suns Dawn, 4th Era, 202. The village horde charged with me to the last known lair of the vampire Morvarth, and into a large battle. In what can only be described as a miracle, none of the villagers died, though my shouts may have had something to do with it. Then, in what can only be described as an even more miraculous miracle, they all listened to me when I told them to go home. They were lucky to have lived this long, and I think they knew it. They walked home, but not without a few orders to the effect of, kill everything in there that moves. Which is exactly what I had planned on doing in the first place. The first of my two targets was Morvarth, the idiot vampire who had created this whole mess in the first place. The second, if she was here, was Alva. Killing her would, I hoped, free Hrogar of his thrall status and leave him with his wits intact. I'm not sure why I cared about that at all, really. I've never met the man before tonight. Regardless, I knew that to be my course. The first several rooms took only a few moments to clear, and when I realized I was looking into the dining hall, and that Morvarth was perfectly aligned for an arrow shot, I almost smiled. I didn't, of course. That would have wasted energy better spent on pulling back the string, aiming, and letting the arrow deliver my message of death. Morvath, vampire of the Morthal region, is dead. He looked almost peaceful when I looked at the corpse. I hope he enjoyed his last meal, whoever it had been. Alva wasn't far off either, protected by at least 3 additional vampires, though all of them are now dead. Alva is not only dead, but was revived through necromancy, then killed again and turned into ashes. In a way, you could say she died 3 times during her life, a fitting end to a troublemaker who almost made her entire hometown a cattle pen for vampires. That would have been the future under Harkin. I did not allow it then. I certainly wasn't going to allow it now. Only the hostage remains to be found and freed, though I don't imagine I'll run into much more in the way of resistance. I was right on both counts. There was only 1 vampire remaining, and he had somehow missed all of the commotion, far too immersed in his alchemy to realize that he was about to die. With him removed, I continued my search, eventually locating the citizen and being asked to escort them back to Snowshard Farm. Completely the wrong direction for solitude, but I do what I have to. I'm not sure why I'm doing this work for the companions, except that maybe the whole werewolf thing they have going on is what I want, what I need. Being around these vampires, even on the killing side of the battle, has reminded me more than anything of what I've given up. Now, later. The hostage is rescued, though I still have to walk her all the way back to Riften instead of just putting her in a carriage for some reason. The vampire threat to Morthal is over. Jarl Ygritte was understandably appreciative of my efforts and has made most of the path clear for me in becoming Thane here in Morthal as well. I don't plan to pursue that just yet, however. I have enough demands on my time for the moment. Now for a long ride with a second person sitting behind me. Snowshard Farm is right outside Riften, so I have some hours I will have to listen to her pointless prattle as we go. At least I know that my house in Riften will have a warm bed waiting for me. At least it had better, or me and my housecarl are going to have words. I had to shove my passenger off of Arvak as we approached the border gates for the rift. The shriek was proof enough, but the flapping of wings? I'm not going to forget that sound anytime soon. She wasn't happy when she hit the ground, but when she saw me charging for the dragon, she shut right up and let me, and the members of the Legion stationed there, get down to business. I explained to the dragon at length why it should have just gone with Parthenax and left Skyrim alone. It got the point. Several dozen of them, actually. Almost immediately. Once we reached the outskirts of Riften, however, I decided enough was enough. If she can't cross a major city on her own, then the 200 feet from the gate to her own farm, there's nothing more I can do for her. She agreed with me, thanked me, and sent me on my way. The problem now is that because I had to deal with a dragon, I'm way more awake than I want to be, and it is too early in the day to think about sleeping through it. Which means back on Arvak, and this time heading for Whiterun and Vilkas. I found Vilkas outside the Whiterun gates, where we both assisted in absolutely ruining the day of a few bandits. That was easy enough, but the sight of a woman running around with a sword, her underwear, and nothing else, was certainly not something that I had expected. I don't want to know. I just don't want to know. Vilkas took my report and then told me I needed to talk to Skjor. He wouldn't say why, but I got the impression that something large is in the works. Assuming I'm right, then this might mean they are finally taking me seriously. They certainly should. I basically took down an entire vampire clan on my own last night. Skjor was indeed looking for me, but what he had to say wasn't for other ears, he said. I am to meet him tonight in the Undercroft, a hidden room beneath the Skyforge. Secrecy. Yes. Something big is going down, indeed. Even better, I have to wait for nightfall, which means I can get some sleep before they send me off to deal with whatever major emergency they are about to get me involved in. It wasn't what I had thought, though in a way, it is what I was expecting. Skjor and Aella have made what I have sometimes referred to as a command decision. Kodlak is looking for ways out of his werewolf membership, if you will, to the point that these two members of the Circle have decided to act on their own accord. I was presented the choice to become one of them, to become part of the pack, part of the Circle. I'd been thinking on this for some time. Fiotra claimed not long ago that doing this would cost me a piece of my humanity. But do I really have any left after being one of the undead? Is this really any different? It is, in at least one important respect. When I became a vampire, I didn't think I had any choice, not with Lord Harkon standing over me. Here, though, here I have a choice. I could have walked away. I didn't. 17 Sun's Dawn, 4th Era, 202. I had what felt like a dream of stalking the streets of Whiterun. I knew it was no dream, however. Having been a monster before, I certainly know what it feels like to be one again. I made for the training yard and stayed there, away from the others, until I know I can control this new form. I faded out after a few minutes, and when I woke up, I was nowhere near Whiterun. We were in the backwoods of northern Whiterun Hold. I say we, because Aella was with me, and Skjor was just up ahead. The old warrior had said he had something special for me. And while this gift is part of it, the other half still lies ahead. The Silver Hand are here, and we are going to slaughter every last one of them. There is some familiarity to this new form. As when I was a vampire, there is a power to it, a primal excitement to the hunt. But where being a vampire lord is about cunning, calculation, and a deliberateness of action, a werewolf is the opposite. It is about pure, unbridled rage, terror, speed, and razor-sharp claws. Those on the outside who were unfortunate enough to see us coming were my first victims. I could taste their terror as I tore out their throats, ripped abdomens in twain. This is fury. This is unstoppable and undeniable power. There is, however, the backside to this, as there always is. Entering the castle ruins we were here to empty out, we found the remains of another wolf. One that Aella claims not to know. Just some poor soul who could not control his inner wolf and lost all connection to humanity. Right up until the Silver Hand killed him. A thing to remember. I can lose myself in this blood rage if not careful. That call, the blood rage, it may well have claimed the life of Skjor. The pair of us stormed through the ruins, taking down dozens of the Silver Hand as we did. My own form returned to my normal one halfway through the slaughter, and Aella never shifted, but even in our human forms, we were death as we stalked the corridors. At the end of it was their leader, one called the Skinner by those in the Hand, and for reasons that should be obvious. The fight was a short and brutal one, leaving all of them dead. We found Skjor's body nearby, and Aella's rage grew fiercer. She would look for more clues and ways to hunt down the rest of the Silver Hand for revenge. In the meantime, I am being sent to find another piece of Wuthrad that the Hand has located. Kodlak is going to hate this news when he gets it. Lost Knife Cave wasn't far from where I was, so I made for it directly, and began the slaughter. I tried, but wasn't able to shift to my wolf form, leading me to think there are some other limitations that I am not yet aware of. That, however, was fine. Just a weapon I was still learning to use, and I had so many others to bring to the party. Fireballs, it turns out, are very good for this kind of thing, as the Silver Hand are very flammable. Strange, though. I'm not entirely certain, but I think the Hand are working with a local bandit group as well. Perhaps the Hand is more bandit than anything else and simply have it out for wolves for some reason. After returning to Whiterun, I spoke with Aella again. She had nothing new for me in terms of how we were going to continue our chase of the Silver Hand, at least not directly. For the moment, we will restrain ourselves to hit-and-run attacks against places we know they will gather. I was handed a target, Redoran's Retreat, and told to deal with them there. Redoran's Retreat. Why does that sound so familiar? And then it clicked. Months ago it was, so I'm not sure how good the information is anymore, but I was approached by a bunch of Redguards and offered gold to help them find a Redguard woman in Whiterun. I was supposed to take any information there. I ran the numbers of Redguard women in Whiterun through my head, and one name came straight to the top. If I have to go out there anywhere, then I should look into this other matter as well. No sense in wasting time, after all. I made for the Bannered Mare, to have a word in private with the serving girl, Sadia. I asked Sadia if she had heard about the Alakir in Skyrim, and things escalated quickly. I suppose she thinks I'm working for them, since she drew steel on me and threatened to cut me in half if I didn't start talking. It was almost cute. Then she started talking, filling me in, and her story was even cuter, like a child telling a story, hoping it makes sense. Hers already doesn't. Her first claim was that she was a noble of House Suda in Hammerfell. I have a hard time with that, since I just can't see a noble, even one trying to hide, becoming a servant for any protracted amount of time with no indications that she was used to being served, not serving. Then, to claim that the Alakir are nothing more than mercenaries? No. As a sellsword myself, to a degree, I can understand why everyone thinks that mercenaries are just in it for the cash and have no sense of honor, but that doesn't make sense here either. Everything I've heard about them, up until now, paints them as honorable warriors. Trying to say that they are working for, of all people, the Dominion is just laughable. Hammerfell is still fighting the Dominion, and I just can't see such a group working for the people who are trying to subjugate their home. Something stinks here. I had to look back through my journals, and it was not Redoran's Retreat that the Alakir were waiting at, though it had been mentioned. Their representative was in Rorikstead, not far off. I rode to the hamlet and found their man in the tavern. I have no real stake in this search, but Sadia's lies are not inclining me to believe her overmuch, nor her initial hostility, which seemed very out of the expected for one in her position. Before I revealed anything to the Alakir, though, I asked for more information. Their story seems more plausible given what I know about them. Her being a noble is actually true, so there I tip my hat to her acting. In the Alakir version, however, she was responsible for helping the Dominion gain access to a city in Hammerfell, leading to that city falling. Her role in it was discovered, and she has been on the run since then. They are not to kill her themselves. They are only to capture and return her to Hammerfell for trial. I almost asked why, if that was true, she didn't run to the Dominion for help, but I answered my own question moments later. The Dominion, knowing she was compromised as an agent, wouldn't claim her or assist her. She was of no further use to them. This makes far more sense. I turned over my information on Sadia, and we planned on how to get her to come to them for the capture. I also noted I would be going to the retreat first. We made arrangements for us to meet up outside Whiterun when I returned. They will be waiting when I lure her out afterwards. I stayed to linger over a mug of water while the warrior raced off to inform his brethren that they would soon be going home. After an hour, I was back on the road, heading for the cave, and arrived in the late afternoon. Too late to enter and clear it out without likely it dragging on into the early morning hours, so I made camp a small distance away where I could watch the entrance and wait for early morning to strike. I was surprised to see no guards on the entrance. No indications of anyone entering or leaving as I watched into the early evening hours. Not that it would have mattered, but at least they would have had a chance to prepare if they saw me coming. I almost pity them all. They will all die, and there is nothing they can do to prevent it. I settled in, preparing myself to wake early for my strike on Redoran's retreat and a Silver Hand leader. 18 Sun's Dawn, 4th Era, 202. There were not many of the Hand in residence here. Perhaps half a dozen, including their leader, my target. They were not hard to deal with either, but I must admit to some deal of surprise in something I discovered about the Hand. For all that they are hunters of werewolves, it appears they have no injunctions against necromancy. I had shot one of their number and saw their leader use the magic to raise that corpse. Not that he was alive for much longer anyhow to make use of it. The corpse fell to ashes as I pierced the leader's heart with another arrow. Strange that they would fight against one horror of the world, but make use of another one entirely. Or perhaps they believe that any means is justified by their end. I would wager some of their number even includes vampires, if I were to hunt them enough. After a quick meeting with Kamatu, the leader of the Alakir here in Skyrim, I entered Whiterun and went back to the Bannered Mare. Sadia was already up and working, allowing me to cut straight to the chase. I lied to her. Told her I hadn't been able to defeat all of the Alakir, and that they were on their way. She was stunned, of course. She knew my reputation and was surprised I hadn't been able to deal with them all, plus trying to figure out how they would be getting into the city when they were barred from entry. Still, she took me at my word, and we raced from the Bannered Mare. I raced ahead of Sadia, enough that it did not seem odd, but fast enough to make my ruse seem truthful. As I passed around the side of the stables, I signaled to Kamatu, and when Sadia came around the corner, she had just enough time to realize something was off before she was paralyzed and fell limp to the ground. That she was paralyzed and not killed gave more evidence to Kamatu's version of the events. If Sadia had been truthful, she'd have been killed on the spot. He'd be dragging her off to High Rock for her trial. As for me, well, as I said, I have no real stake in the outcome of this event, so I'll be getting back to business. I'll just be content not to see people being harassed on the roads because they were Redguard women. I next returned to Yovaska and Aella, where I reported the death of the Silverhand leader and his band at Redoran. The word seems to be getting out about us quickly, as the Silver Hand has been going into retreat, hiding away from us. This is both good and bad. Good in that they will not be quite so brazen as to try trapping one of us again, but bad as it makes it harder to hunt them down and destroy them. Even the bad part almost sounds like a good thing. A good hunt is always thrilling. There is one band, though, that we had a lead on, and Aella is more or less certain that this band has some form of plan or communication that we can make use of to find the remaining Silver Hand in Skyrim. They are in the Rift, where I hadn't planned on going just yet, however. As they are likely to still be there in a few days, I plan to make for Solitude to check on the planetarium, take care of some museum maintenance, and then return to Sancre-Tor and the Herald of Akatosh to see where this all leads. I returned to Solitude and went to the planetarium to see where Madras was on his progress. What he showed me, I have never seen its like. Nothing even close. When he placed a cube into the stand at the top of the machine, all around faded, and a view of Nirn appeared before me, as though I were a god and looking down upon the world in its entirety. This by itself would have been amazing enough, but there was more. All of the heavens were there. Massa, Secunda, all the other worlds that we have known existed but could barely see, all of them on display. Truly, this is how the Aedra and the Daedra must see our universe, and it was awe-inspiring. Madras allowed me a few moments to wonder, but then told me that there were likely more cubes, more things that this planetarium could show us. I nodded slowly. Even apart from the knowledge that we might gain from this, the power that knowledge might provide. I mean, the donations alone from just this one thing at the museum would not be inconsiderable. I must bring this up with Aryan. It might slow down Madras's research somewhat, but we would be fools not to make this a core feature of the museum at large. After several hours of museum maintenance, I retired to the safe house and prepared to sleep for the evening. I planned to return to Sancre-Tor in the morning and see if the plan put together with Aryan was correct, or just a very long, very drawn-out fairy story. I'm hoping for the former, of course, but I have to admit to some trepidation. If I am, as the Herald suggests, the child of Akatosh, what does this mean for me? I tried several of the Aedra and found them all as selfish and self-serving as any other man or mer on Mundus. Akatosh, though, the stories about him are clear. When he gets involved, there are world-altering things afoot. Surprisingly, he didn't seem to take a direct hand in the events surrounding Alduin, but if he is now, what is coming? And why me?